What time is it? Say it's time for KP's Video News. KP's Video News. It's KP's Video News, y'all. It's KP's Video News, y'all. That's right, it's time for KP's Video News, y'all. We're gonna get busy. Gonna get busy right quick. Yep. Yeah, we here today, folks, and it's June 26th. It's Friday. TGIF Day. Friday, and I'm gonna get real deep on this voters' rights and the voters. We got to fight the voter suppression, man. They got a voter suppression going on in the United States. They're trying to keep the African people from voting, trying to stop African American people from voting, and old people from voting, and college age people from voting. They're trying to put a limit on your access to voting, your basic rights that you have here in the United States that you've had for the longest. They're trying to take that right away from you because they saw what happened back in 2008 when President Obama got elected, and they said, well, whoa, wait a minute, we have forgot all about these African folks over here. We forgot all about them, and they sit up here and voted a black president, and we got to do to stop this. So this is what the Republicans have been doing. They've been trying and they've been working on voter suppression, and so your voting rights are under attack nationwide as states pass voter suppression laws, and these laws lead to significant burdens for eligible voters trying to exercise their most fundamental constitutional right. Since 2008, states across the country have passed measures to make it harder for people, particularly African Americans, the elderly, students, and people with disabilities, to exercise their fundamental right to cast a ballot. These measures include cuts to early voting, voter ID laws, and purges of voter rolls. So the purge is like they go and they look at the voter rolls, and if you haven't voted in a while, they'll just take your name completely off the list, and they won't re-register you, and they won't even contact you to let you know, well, hey, we just took your name off the list so you can re-register. So these things are going on right now, man. They're going on right now. So it's that's the way this situation is going. And in order to bring voter registration into the 21st century and to make voting as convenient as possible, we got advocates for reforms that have been demonstrated to be extremely effective in making sure that all people get a chance to vote, cast a ballot, are able to do so. State level efforts to expand access to the polls include expanding early voting, online voter registration, and same-day voter registration. And we got to get rid of these Jim Crow era laws that they trying to put up, man. And these are the new Jim Crow era laws that take away your rights, man. And also taking away your rights with criminal convictions. You go to jail, then they come back and they say, well, since you've been to jail, you can't vote. So we got to get rid of all of that and get that mess off the books. The same, just like we're fighting the trying to get that whole thing about cash bail off the books. And voters' rights are under attack nationwide. As states legislatures pass voter suppression laws under the pretext of preventing voter fraud and safeguarding election integrity, but that's not even the plan. These voter suppression laws take many forms. Like I said before, cutting back on early voting and voter laws and making it harder for people to vote when they go to the wrong precinct. Collectively, such measures lead to significant burdens for eligible voters trying to exercise their most fundamental constitutional right. So you just saw that. You just saw it in real time. You just saw what they just did in Georgia, and you saw what they just did in Kentucky. So, I mean, the lines in Georgia, man, was so long in predominantly Native American neighborhoods that people had to wait in line for 6, 7, 8 hours, man, to vote. When if you went on the other side of town in a predominantly white neighborhood, you can go in 5 minutes, boom, you're on your way out the door. So they just shut down thousands of polling places. And Kentucky voters will determine which Democrat will challenge Moscow Mitch in November. Recent events have tightened the primary into a competitive race. In March, 8 police officers barged into Breonna Taylor's apartment in Louisville with a batter ram and fatally shot her, according to polling. Voters outraged over Taylor's killing and propelled by national uprising against systematic racism have narrowed the gap between progressive Charles Booker, a black state representative with a message about racial justice, and former Marine Amy McGrath, a moderate Democrat. But the threat of the coronavirus pandemic, coupled with the decisions of election officials to close thousands of polling places across Kentucky, leaves many of the newly energized voters in a bind. After Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear delayed the primary from mid-May to June 23rd in response to the coronavirus pandemic, he issued an executive order requiring the Board of Elections to expand voting by mail, permit early voting, and limit contact among voters and poll workers during the in-person voting. About a week later, the Board of Elections directed county clerks across the state to submit plans that included cuts to the number of polling locations in each county. Counties across the states compiled of about 767,000 people in Louisville, Jefferson County, chose one single polling place, a convention center, and with spaced out voting booths, while Lafayette County selected the University of Kentucky's football stadium. So that's in two major counties in Kentucky. They had two polling places, one that was supposed to handle 767,000 people, and the other that was 319,000 people. All in all, according to Kentucky officials, have reduced the number of polling places in the state from 3,700 in a typical election year to fewer than 200. That's a 3,500 polling places they closed down. So listen to what I'm saying. They went from 3,700 polling places all the way down to 200 polling places in the entire state. And in two of those major cities, like Louisville and Fayette County, they dropped it all the way down to two polling places. And those are predominantly black areas, predominantly African American areas. The decision to cut polling places has been drawn concern about the potential for voter suppression, particularly African American voters, many of whom live in the counties where they will be a single voting location. About 20% of residents in Jefferson County are African Americans, making the county the center of the state's black population. And it's so bad, even LeBron James had something to say about it. But on Thursday night, a federal judge denied a motion in a class action lawsuit filed by a Republican state representative and voters from Kentucky's Jefferson, Fayette, and Kenton counties. The lawsuit sought a court order to add more polling places to the counties, the three most populous in the state. The issue before the court is not whether a hypothetical voter in Kentucky's upcoming primary election would benefit from additional polling places. And that's what the judge said. And he denied the motion. The judge. And this is probably I'm going to have to do a research on here. This is probably one of those Trump-appointed judges. And he denied the motion rather than the issue is whether the challenge election procedures result in a cognizable infringement under the Constitution and injury under the Voting Rights Act. And he claimed that it did not. And it's like terrible, man. Terrible. says outrageous that officials are seeking to hold in-person elections in a single location, man. Wow. So if the people turned out in standing in line out of that 700,000, you figure even if just half of them came, let's just for the sake of argument say 375,000 people went out there to vote. That's 375,000 people in just one polling place, and they say 150,000 in the other area, in that other one place. Man, come on, man. You think those people gonna stand there? They would have to stand there for 8-10 hours, and it makes absolutely positively no sense. So it had to be some kind of accountability. These people need to be locked up. They need to be thrown under the jail for this voter suppression that they're doing. Voting and civil rights experts are watching to see if Kentucky would show the same dysfunction on, and it did. It's outrageous that officials are seeking to hold in-person elections in a single location, man. It's just ridiculous. It says if Kentucky failed to follow the crisis that unfolded in Wisconsin and Georgia, where officials were woefully unprepared for the turnout on election day. In Wisconsin, see, they did the same thing in Wisconsin, and they had right in the middle of a pandemic, and several people end up getting infected with the coronavirus. And hey, man, it's just like a lot of people that worked at the polling place got infected. A lot of people that were waiting in those long lines got infected with the coronavirus because one Republican senator there was opposed to the mail-in ballots because the DC dunce had basically is throwing that garbage out there, even though he votes by mail, even though Pence votes by mail, even though the majority of the people in his cabinet vote by mail. They're telling you, we can't have mail-in voting. It's going to be some fraud involved. But you do it. So what kind of double standard is that? You've been voting by mail for decades, but you lying to us, telling us you trying to stop the mail-in voting because of voter fraud. That's voter suppression. That's all it is voter suppression. And we as a people must stand up and fight against this voter suppression, man, because they're trying to take away your right to vote. Your right to vote. I want to make sure I vote every time. What time is it? Say it's time for KP's Video News. Time to stand up. Be counted. KP's Video News. That's right. It's KP's Video News, y'all. It's KP's Video News, y'all. That's right. Stand up and be counted. Stand up and be counted. Stand up and be counted. It's KP's Video News, y'all.